And
Yes.
I think we are live. Good morning.
Yay.
Good morning.
Good afternoon and good evening
Good
because
evening.
we're live everywhere, not
That's
just in the
right.
US.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
Yes.
Um, how's the past week been?
Oh, it's been beautiful. First of all, I have to say happy Valentine's to everyone
Yes.
who's watching. Happy
Yes. Happy
Valentine's.
Valentine's Day. That's right. The kids got up this morning and they got a little box of chocolates. They got some candy. They're really excited.
Yeah. Yeah, of course, of course. But I think that the message for today is that we are sharing love, which is the
Mm,
highest form of communication. And that is what Valentine's Day is all about. So happy Valentine's Day, everyone. Sending you love all over the place.
it's so good. Um,
Mhm.
I we are um let me make sure that this is going live.
It would be
Oh, let's see. Is this okay? There we go. I think go live. There was an extra step.
now. Yes.
Now we're live. Here we go.
Yes,
There was an
now we're
extra
live.
step. There was an extra step this
Okay.
morning. Well, good morning. It's still perfect time. We made it just in the nick of time.
Yes, exactly.
Um,
Good. Yeah, go ahead. Or I'll say it. You said good morning. I say good evening and good afternoon to everyone that is watching because
that's
I
right.
am not in the US.
That's right.
Lucas is, and good morning to everyone in the US. Also, happy Valentine's Day to everyone watching.
Yes.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day. It's such a beautiful day to pause and reflect and give thanks to those that we love, receive that love. This morning the kids got came downstairs and they all got a little gift and candies and they're excited about it. They're excited about it.
Of course, I think it's a beautiful day because what it's all about is that we are sharing love, which is the highest form of communication. So that's a great thing that we have at least one day a year to do. So I would love us to share love every single day. So that is what we are doing here, at least every Sunday live. And welcome everyone who's watching.
Yes, welcome. Last week we had such a beautiful discussion and this week, we wanted to talk about the ego and one of the things I've been struck by, especially doing the emotional intelligence work and being in the space of healing, the spiritual community, um, ego is thrown around like the word love, where everyone has a different meaning about it, different
Mm,
context. And one of the things that I've been struck by is that there's this camp that talks about ego death and ego is the enemy and really attacks the ego. But one of the things that I've learned is our ego is like our right hand, or it's part of us, and we get to
mm.
love our ego, thank our ego, but then no longer believe we are our ego, that we can create separation and use it as a tool. I don't always use my right hand. Sometimes I use my
Yes.
left. I don't always need to use my ego.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. I mean, as long as you are breathing and you are in time and space in this physical reality, ego is a part of who you are. You cannot lose it. It's like the shadow. I mean, you can run and run, but it's still there. That is how ego is attached to us. Also, the way I see ego as the container of all the desires and passions and wants and needs and fears and everything that we are here to explore. It is the container of what your soul wants to explore in this reality. So without the ego, you wouldn't have any passions, you wouldn't have any goals, you wouldn't have any dreams, you wouldn't have any drive. So if you want to kill the ego, well, what's the purpose of being in the physical reality then? Because when you're one with everything, you don't need the exploration of the physical reality. So I've been there, done that, wanting to get rid of the ego. When I was much younger, I think I was in my 20s, I was always thinking about the spiritual path and trying to get rid of all the ego stuff that I had. But that is not possible. It's mission impossible to do so in this physical world. What you can do is to learn how to use your ego instead of being used by your ego. Also, what does it mean to use your ego? Well, it means to recognize when it is the ego's voice you're listening to, or when you're just present in the now moment. So, I mean, I've been seeing ego as the narrator in this world, the one that is telling us, the one that describes the reality for you. Now, sometimes when the ego is having the upper or having the power over you, it will describe the reality in a very, very limited way for you. It will tell you that you cannot go outside of certain boundaries, and it will do this with fear. That is when the ego becomes stronger than who you are, and the voice of the ego is much louder than your soul source voice. So I think we can talk a little bit about how to recognize when it is ego speaking or when it is source. How does that, I mean, how do you, I know that you know how to do it, but can you talk a little bit about how you do it?
Well, the very first thing that my whole focus is on soul, my soul, my soul's connection, where I am in alignment. For so long, I was in ego. I was a hurt person checking every box of success possible in the world. $1 million company, TV reporter, published author, all these things, trying to, in my ego, check another box to feel loved, to feel like I can finally rest and simply be. I don't have to do another thing to be recognized for me, until I hit rock bottom, until my whole world dissolved and collapsed around me. And that's when I really had to look at what is my ego and what is my soul. And that's when I started to learn about the three voices: the voice in our mind, the chatter that's constant. Our heart has a voice, and our gut has a voice, which I think is tied to the soul, which is our soul's voice. And it's usually that still small voice, and it will say, it never comes in bravado, it never comes in grandeur. It just, because it doesn't need to. The soul just says, you know, you know. But when I was an ego, I ignored it. And so now when I start my day every single morning, this morning did the same thing. I will do it tomorrow morning. I thank God for returning my soul within me with compassion and loving kindness. And when I am in that place of gratitude, just for waking up, just for consciously being aware, I gave thanks for you. I gave thanks that we got to go live. I gave thanks for, I mean, I don't get out of bed till I, in that place of just gratitude for just being awake. That place of gratitude, the ego has no power, because the ego is protecting, for everyone listening, the ego gets built up when we have trauma as young children, because it protects our soul, it protects our innocence. When we are now adults in our own power, or can step into that power, but we still have the ego controlling us, we have not fully stepped into who we are. And we get to thank our ego. Thank you. Thank you for being the container which preserved my innocence. Thank you for guarding and protecting me when no one else could protect me. And I don't need your protection anymore. I am safe. I am powerful. I have these words behind me. It says, I am safe, loved, free, abundant, powerful. And those are my soul's resonance. And when I say those more and more, my ego, I mean, the fact that I even do my hair, it's like, does any of this matter? It doesn't. Is our soul resonance in alignment with love? So that's how I see not having to use my ego when I'm in that place of gratitude.
I think absolutely, because gratitude is such a high frequency, and ego wants the lower frequencies. That is where ego actually dwells, in the lower frequencies. And I know that for me, when I was a child, my ego trigger would be becoming a victim, because my father was dominant. And the only way I knew how to survive was to go into victim mode. And that became my trigger to ego. I know exactly when ego wakes up in me. When I start seeing people with a non-loving eye, when I think that they want to hurt me, or when I think that they are arrogant, or when I see their flaws, I know that I'm falling asleep to my soul and my ego is awakened. This is the cue for me. I know exactly when this happens. And I know that it's a tough thing to do in the world, to say, well, what do you mean? Am I supposed to see everyone with a loving eye? That might be the truth, but it's very hard as a human being to walk around and see everyone with a loving eye. What you can do is be very much aware of, is it a negative narration going on in your mind? When it is a negative narration going on in your mind, your ego is activated. And when you know this, you can make a choice. You can say, okay, so I know that I'm speaking from ego, but I do think that this person is arrogant. And then you just accept it for what it is. It is when you don't know, when you think that that person, that's the true um, that's the true identity of that person, arrogance. That is when you have fallen asleep to ego, and ego has taken over.
So
So
good.
it's a subtle thing going on. I allow myself to have a negative narration as long as I know that the one listening, my soul, is there and is present.
Mm.
I can give you another analogy when it comes to ego and how it feels when ego is awakened. Since it is Valentine's Day, I would love to describe it. When you are close to another person, when you're making love with another person and you're thinking about making love, you're thinking about stuff in that moment, it is the ego that is activated, and you will not enjoy it the way you would if weren't thinking about it. You know, when you are with someone and you really love them and it feels like a dance, you're not thinking, you're just present in that now moment. You don't even know what you're doing, you're just enjoying the moment. You don't care how you look like, you don't care how the other person looks like. It's the energy, the flow of energy between you. That is the soul energy going through both of you. If one starts to think, that is broken. At that moment, it is broken, and that is the ego activated. It can be, oh my God, don't look the way I want to look, or oh my God, he or she doesn't like it. And
Mm.
that's where the ego comes. That is how the ego is awakened. It took me years to get to that place where I wasn't thinking about myself or my body or how I looked like in that very, very sensitive and beautiful moment when you are together with another human being. But it is always the ego doing this. This is a very, very easy way of catching yourself when the ego starts to awaken within you. So this is why I say, when it is a narrative that is negative, be sure that it is the ego that is awakened. It's really easy. The hard part is to say no to the ego. That's the hard part.
Yes. The awareness, for like Dave, who's watching, said, Wayne Dyer said, ego stands for edging God out. He said,
Yes.
it sounds as though you're saying something slightly different. Actually, I agree with it's edging God out, but what is the ego? The ego is always in a doing. It's
Mm,
always in future tense. What do I have to do to be validated? And
mm,
when you seek validation outside of yourself, that is a fire that can never be satiated. You are going to be
mm,
doing things forever.
mm,
God resides. Our breath is the neshama, the breath of God. It says,
mm,
is God
mm,
breathed into man, man became a living soul. So when we come back into ourselves in being,
mm,
and then when the ego says we got to do, or what, what do you look like, or what do you sound
mm.
like, or what is that person saying to you that you have to respond? That's all in doing. But when we can come back to being and be in the now moment and being in presence,
Mm.
What a great joy to say, I hear you, thank you, and
And say no.
I'm
Yeah.
choosing. Yeah,
Mm.
I'm saying no to you,
Yeah.
but I appreciate it. I hear you. I'm just not ruled by you anymore. And it says in the Bible, it says that um, the flesh is at enmity with the spirit, capital S, like the spirit of God, the spirit of love. The flesh
Mm.
is at enmity. And I always look at enmity as um, Rocky Four, the movie Rocky Four. And at the beginning, these two gloves like come, and it's the Russian glove and it's the US glove, and they come and they collide, and sparks
Mm.
explode out of the gloves.
Mm.
I see that as when we're in ego, we're always going to be butting up against flow and presence and love and
Mm.
joy, like real joy. But when
Mm.
we can see that, hey, I need a glove, I need a boxing glove, because sometimes we do have to go
Mm.
out into the world and um, do things for the greater good.
Mm.
But I can always take that glove off. The glove is
Mm.
not me.
Absolutely. I mean, the glove is not you because that is not, it is not the life force in you.
Mm.
My body is so connected, strongly connected to ego, is because um, it is because ego is all about limitations. And that is what the ego's job is. I actually write about this in my book. There's an entire chapter where I say that ego is not such a bad thing. You just have to know how to use it here. You have to see it as the tool it is. Because when I know who I am, I also know who you are, because who I truly am is this spirit. It is the life force. It is the quantum field going through me. This is my true essence. This is my soul essence. And it is the same thing within you. You are a living human being, and the living part of you, the spirit in you, is the same as is in me. It is the same soul. It is, as you put it, God experiencing this world through us, which means that the essence is one and the same in each and every one of us. So you might ask, what differs us? Well, our desires, our purpose, how we look and who we think we are in this physical world, what God or spirit wants to explore through each and every one of us. And that is contained by the ego. Because if you wouldn't have an ego, I would see God in you as you would see God in me. And what would be the purpose of being different then? We
Right,
would be all that is.
right.
So for me, ego works like this. You see, this glass is like, the glass is ego and the water is your soul. And your sole purpose is contained in this glass. And if you forget that you are a soul exploring physical reality here, having a body, a soul having a body exploring physical reality, your ego is transparent when you remember that, and your soul can see through. It knows that the ego is just a tool, so you can use it. But if you start believing that you are your body and nothing else, and that you are this physical being here, your ego becomes tainted and the soul cannot look through the glass. So it forgets that it is much bigger than the body, only the body. And I think that when we believe in limitations, when we believe in fear, when we believe in the negative stuff about each other, that is when we allow ego to speak much louder than the whisperings of our soul. We can't hear them because it's tainted. We don't understand that the ego is just a container of the differences between us. And we are here to explore the differences. We are here to choose between positive and negative, between light and darkness. The choice is always there. And ego contains this exploration, this desire to find new things, to get a funny rush of a surprise. That is why we cannot see. We're not our souls exploring this. We need something that puts a veil in front of our eyes, and the ego is the thing that puts the veil in front of our eyes, or at least this is how I see it. And when I do this, I can also see that okay, so when I am in ego mode, I will see this world in a very, very limited way. I cannot explore it fully. I will not feel the joy. I will seek out the more negative stuff in this reality.
Yeah. That when you can see through clearly, but when people are not aware of the detachment between their soul and their ego, that glass becomes opaque. And so they
Yes,
can't see out of it. And people
yes.
can't really see the true authentic nature of the beauty of who we are and who we bring. When
Hmm.
someone says namaste, it's literally acknowledging the divine spark in me, the same spark that is within you, honors and sees the divine spark in you. And may I burn brighter, and may you burn brighter, and may we illuminate this world. But when we're in opaqueness, how can I see another's divine spark? I can't. And so I'm constantly in judgment of others and a judgment of myself. And you said victim, and it's such an important, we either stand in divine responsibility and accountability for our being inside of us and choosing to breathe consciously to still ourselves, or we're constantly in a vibration that makes us in this opaque world where we can't truly see the divine nature. And there's many in the religious world, because that's where I've come from, the religious side, who still have opaque containers. Their ego, they can't see through it, but they're still talking about spiritual concepts. But in the way they talk about spiritual concepts, it's still in a place of doing. So if I fasted every single week from Sunday night to Tuesday morning for 5 years in a row. I never missed a morning or night of praying on my knees. I read the Bible cover to cover 7 times in 14 years. I was fully an opaque container. I was an ego trying to do something so that I could get some relief. And all we're here to learn is that the doing doesn't add anything to our value or our virtue or our light. Detaching from that doing and coming back to the place of soul and essence and honor, really, this is what we're awakening to right now. And how could I
Yeah,
learn that lesson without the ego?
exactly. I love how you say detach from it, because it's a question of not destroying the ego, but detaching and understanding that you can choose in every now moment, you can choose whatever it is that you want to explore. That is the beauty of being here. Every single now moment will contain both darkness and light, both pluses and minuses. And if you are in ego mind, you will per definition choose the minuses and the darkness, because that it will choose the limitations, and you will not be aware of your choice. You will only see them as true. That's the only truth you can see. This is why I say, if I start to look at another human being through their flaws, I have activated my ego, because I match the frequency of what I believe there. So I will only be able to see the flaws within them. I can never go beyond the flaws, because my ego will show me that as the truth. If I know that every single being is a pure life force, unconditional love incarnated, if they have forgotten it, that is something different. I can see their ego playing around. But if I know that every single human being is this light, then I know when I'm falling asleep. When I'm not seeing that light, I am falling asleep to my own light. I am disconnecting from who I truly am when I look at someone else and I judge them. I am disconnecting from that. And this is why ego, I see it as a tool, because the minute you know that you have disconnected, you also know that it is the ego driving. And it can be, I mean, it can behave like an insane driver. It will pull you in all directions, and you will be exhausted. When you come to your senses again, you will be exhausted and you don't know what happened. Well, that's the ego driving you in a certain frequency. It's like a being. I almost see it like a being within me that wants its fix. It wants its frequencies. It wants my feelings. It wants the drama. And if I fall asleep to who I am, I allow the drama and it will drain me. Every single time I will be drained by it. Even if I am the victim in that drama, it's still my ego showing me the limitations of everything, because that is what ego does here. It's its job to show you the limitations. So I feel like it's easy to know when the ego is activated, but it's tougher to say no to the ego, even if you know that it is activated. And that's an interesting question to ask oneself. Why is it so hard to say no to the ego?
Mm. Well, Dave asked a good question. So how do we clean the glass? And you said choice. And it really does
Yes.
come down to the law of free will.
Yes.
The most human concept of our being here on the planet is choice. That's what allows us, that's what creation is, to choose and to create and to experience. When we don't think we have choice in every single breath, we are in victim and things will always happen to us. They did this to me. This happened to me. Even, you and I going creating our course and talking about childhood stuff, but we were still in that space. It would always be, they did this, they did this. But now that we come to this place and say, no, I actually can choose differently. And that is an incredible awareness that I don't have to be stuck in victim. I can now see the great power of going through those things to awaken, to say, now I can choose different. And those things happen for me so that I can, in this very moment, be here with you, share this message, and not get triggered by people any longer when they present opportunities for me to go back in ego, to simply say, okay, I'm safe. I'm here. I'm now. I'm all the I am statements that I can say, as opposed to get swept into the ego of what's going to happen. They're going to hurt me, or what's the consequence for their actions. And I say, no, I am powerful. I am here in my I am to choose different.
Yeah, what you're saying here is actually an aspect of the ego, also a sign that you are in ego mind, is if you are projecting yourself into the future. If you're, let's say that you're worrying about the future, this is the ego. It has been activated and it will narrate things for you that has not yet happened as if they are happening in the now moment. The same thing goes with the past. If you're in your past and you feel victimized and you're feeling the feelings in the now moment, this is the ego activated, because truly in the now moment, nothing is happening. Literally nothing is happening. If you want, you can just sit in that silence and in that stillness and say, everything is fine. Because it is. In every single now moment, there is peace to be. The gift of peace is in every single now moment. So if you feel that you are in the future or in the past, ego. If you feel that you have a negative narration around you, ego. So how do you cleanse the glass, or the so that it isn't tainted? Well, namaste is one way to do that, because you're connecting to your source. Another thing is to actually give yourself time to think and ask yourself, is this really true? If you know that every human being is a light, it is unconditional love. Everyone is included in this. This is our true essence. This is the life force within us. And yet you're seeing the bad stuff of that human being. Either you stop, remove yourself from there, give yourself time to think and react in a more slow way, or you choose to say, I see the love in that person, but I also see that that person is ego activated right now. And to choose not to activate your own ego. And that doesn't mean that you love that person. That doesn't mean that you allow that person to abuse you. That's why I say, if you feel it's too much, you have to leave. When you feel that your ego needs to be activated, when you feel that you need to defend yourself or to argue about stuff, ego activation always. So removing oneself from that, staying in stillness, finding that now moment by breathing. Breathing is such a good way to cleanse that. Also knowing that who you truly are from within cannot be hurt by anything. If you feel that it is hurt, it is your ego activated. As a child, you cannot do this because as a child, you have no choice. You have to be where you're put. Parents have power over you. Teachers have power over you. As a child, you cannot do this, but as a grown-up, you cannot be responsible for what happened to you in your childhood, but you can be responsible for how you react to it in the now moment. And that is where you can say no to the ego and go inward and find that light from within. It takes a little bit practice, but when you start doing it, it becomes a habit. And the very fast you can start seeing when other people's egos are activated. You can see when they're in fear, you can see when they're in pain, you can, and that gives you it allows you to be more kind to them because you can see their ego. You do not see them as ego, you can see that their ego is activated, and you don't even need to say it to them. You can just pull back a little bit and be kind or leave.
Yeah. And one of the things that I've learned, especially leading men's retreats, is when I take my mask off, when I choose consciously to drop the ego or the mask, and the mask could just be facilitator at a weekend. It could be, you know, I'm here to teach you versus I'm here with you in this journey. When I take my mask off, it creates the energetic space for others to feel safe enough to take theirs off. So when we come in contact with someone who's in ego, we get to remember we have a choice. We can take our mask off and create the space for them to feel safe enough so they don't have to be an ego. Or if they're believing they are their ego and they're not a safe person to be around, then we can choose to leave. And it comes back to choice. So often when we're in fear, we are in ego, we feel we have to do something, fight or flight. But when we're in love and we realize we have the power to choose, I'm not stuck. I'm not a slave to that narrative any longer. I can simply be. And I think really when Jesus, as he's hanging on the cross and says, Father, forgive them, he's not saying, I forgive you. He doesn't say that. He's saying, God, the source of love, forgive means to love as if it never happened, because ahava means to give, which is the word love in Hebrew. So to give, forgive, meaning he's showing that we can see everyone as a divine spark, everyone as that source of the divine spark on this planet. And I share that as that it still comes back to choice. We don't have to be stuck in ego, even when the worst things are happening to us.
Absolutely. It's really about becoming more aware of what it is that you're thinking and why you're thinking those things. I caught myself the other day when I was thinking about how kindness, to practice kindness towards oneself and others is how you, if you don't practice kindness towards yourself and others, that is how you become driven by the ego. Kindness is such an antidote to ego. And I know this when it comes to other people, but when it comes to myself, I kind of forget it. So I'm not always kind to myself. And this is the ego talking back, punishing me. That is what ego does. I mean, it punishes you so that you will feel bad feelings, and that's where ego dwells. It likes the bad feelings, so to speak. And I was thinking, my ego is punishing me. And I realized that it was my ego talking about itself within me. So I was going, okay, so if I think bad thoughts about anything in my head, that is the ego narrating this to me. So how can I escape this? I can't escape it, but I can be much more aware of, am I kind to myself while I'm thinking those thoughts? Being kind to yourself is a way to loosen the ego's grip around you. So, and most of us don't even know what that means, to be kind to yourself. We are habitually allowing ego to narrate all the bad stuff we think about ourselves all the time. It's like a never-ending story in our heads. And to become more aware of what am I saying to myself, and why am I saying this to myself? Is this really true? Becoming more kind to yourself. Don't speak to yourself as as you would speak to an enemy.
It's so interesting you're saying this. Well, I think I might have figured this out working with you one-on-one coaching a couple years ago, but you're saying kind, and kindness is such a powerful modality that we can choose. And ego doesn't allow us to be kind. What ego allows us to do is be nice. Being a nice person is an ego because it is fear-based. If I'm nice, then, well, that's conditional. It's conditional love. It's not unconditional love. Therefore, it's not from our soul. So if I'm nice, then things won't happen to me, or they'll leave me alone, or people will like me. But kindness is a conscious choice. When I know that I can choose differently and I still choose kindness, that invokes in the other a sense of love. Like, this person is choosing to love me right now. And when I talk about kindness and niceness, I also talk about gentleness is not softness. Gentleness is actually strength felt, meaning a weak person can't be gentle because they have no ability to inflict harm upon another person. But a very strong person, when they touch you consciously and you feel that, that is gentleness. And so these words of ego, they sound very similar to the words of soul, but they are completely two different realities to live in. Kindness is conscious choosing. Gentleness is conscious choosing. Niceness is an abdication of choice. And this is what I get chills just thinking about, that we are waking up as humanity to our conscious choice under the law of free will that cannot be broken no matter what. Is that we get to do everything that we do. We don't have to do anything. And there will be consequences of both sides. There will be consequences when we live in ego, when we feel like I have to go to work. I have to make dinner. I have to do these things. Or I get to do all those things. And both have consequences, because really no parent has to make a meal for their child. They don't. Consequences will take place. Just like consequences when we choose to make that meal will take place. Have a healthy family. Our kids may get, removed or whatever, but it all comes back to choice.
Absolutely. I think that what you're touching upon is the difference between pleasing and serving.
So good. Yeah.
Pleasing is definitely ego, wanting to touch upon a surface so that it might mirror itself in that surface. Oh, they like me. Oh, I'm a good person. But when you serve someone, as when you serve a child, when you make dinner because your children need food, that is serving, that is not pleasing. So when you do that, you do it consciously. It's a choice that you make because you have chosen to share something with others lovingly. That is what serving means. If you're doing it and you are expecting something back, that means that you're pleasing, and that will always put you on a path of suffering. Always. It doesn't matter if it is your children, your partner, or whoever it is, it will always put you in suffering, because it will never show you who you truly are. It will only show you what ego wants you to know about yourself. Never ever will it show you that you are the person, a sovereign being who is choosing to share unconditionally with others, because you know that when you share from source, it is infinite. You will never be depleted when you share from source.
Right.
When you please, you're sharing from ego, and ego is all about limitations. Ego is actually, it is finite.
Yes.
It is not infinite. And that's why it feels like you're giving away something from yourself and you're depleted. If you feel that, then there is something in the giving that is not coming from soul source. That, so as soon as you put conditions on it, it will be going through ego. When there are no conditions, you're giving because you feel unconditional love coming through you, and you know that you can give as much as you want. That is when you will never be depleted of energy when you do that. So that's the difference between the serving and the pleasing. Pleasing, and it might look like the same thing. I know that a lot of women who are not able to do what they want to do in their life because they have to stay at home with their children, and they will be in this victim mode and pleasing their children, and the children can feel it and the mother can feel it. You have to make a conscious choice and say, I choose this. I choose to make dinner to my children, or I choose to make dinner for me or my partner, whoever it is. The choosing is key.
Yes.
Consciously choosing it, or whatever it is that you want to do in reality, but choose it consciously.
Yes.
No, don't just allow it to be there.
Because the truth is you are choosing it. It's just waking up
Yes,
to that. That's
yes,
where the victim mindset is. You don't think you're
yeah.
choosing it, but you actually are choosing it. And
Mm.
this is pleasing. I'm so glad you brought it up. I was a prolific people
Mhm.
a prolific people pleaser. And I in 2016, when I started going through the fullness of my healing journey, and my whole world was shattering, the illusion of everything that I had built, everything that I thought, who I come from, who my family name, all things were dissolving. And I'm walking from my house 4 miles away. I ended up at this grocery store. I just was walking, and I had this thought that I have been like a golden retriever my whole life, that I
Mhm.
kept getting hurt. I kept drawing, not just from inside my home, but outside my home, people that would hurt me. And I would get on my back as a golden retriever and say, I'm not a threat to you. I'm not going to hurt you. And they would bite my underbelly. And then I would,
Mhm.
instead of getting back up and growling or creating that space, I would dig deeper into the dirt and say, I don't understand why you're hurting me. I would never hurt you.
Mm.
I was such a prolific people pleaser. And I went to therapy, and the therapist said, because all I had ever seen was aggression that hurt people.
Mm.
And he
Mhm.
said, there's a difference between aggression that hurts and healthy aggression. He said, a
Mm.
dog doesn't just, rarely does a dog just go and bite someone. It usually bares its teeth, which is healthy
Mhm.
aggression to say, this is where the line is. You stay there and I will stay here,
Mm.
and we can continue
Mm.
on our path. And when he said that, it was like a light bulb. I had never even, I describe this sometimes when I learn these things, like a rod got inserted into my brain, like
Mhm.
some new download of information that I wasn't even aware of. And
Mm.
that's when I stopped people pleasing. It
Mm.
was when I realized boundaries are a part of it, sovereignty is massively a part of it, but it was actually, I'm choosing to get on my back and expose
Mhm.
my belly. So there, of course, what does a wolf do? A wolf's going to do what a wolf does. Or that's the story of the snake that bites the woman, and he's like,
Mhm.
woman, I'm a snake. That's what I do. I bite you.
Mhm.
like, um, so anyway, this is really,
Yeah.
really powerful. Is choosing or pleasing. Yeah,
Mm.
serving.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the pleasing part, um, most of us do this, and it is because in in our childhood we took it up as a survival mechanism. For me, it was a survival mechanism. I knew exactly what I needed to do in order not to be um, punished in any kind of form by my father. So I knew exactly what he wanted from me, which is how you learn how to be a people pleaser. And then you start reading people, you know exactly what they need from you in order for them to like you. And you don't even care if they like you, but you do it because if they like you, they won't hurt you.
That's right.
And that is where the survival mechanism kicks in. It took me years to get to know who I truly am and not to please everyone that came my way. Today I wouldn't even think about it. I will know, I will read the person and I will see their ego and I will go, yes, I see you, thank you, and that's it. I don't need to go into it. But as a younger version of myself, I would be a people pleaser because I knew that that was a way for me to survive in this world. And this is what you describe. You just lay down and allow them to do whatever they want to do, because if you're no threat to them, they won't hurt you. Well, they will hurt you because
That's what they do. Yeah.
that's what they do. It's a snake. So the healthy boundaries, that is also ego. Ego is boundaries. So this is what I mean when I say that we need to learn how to use the ego. I mean, you didn't know how to use the ego. You had a belief system that said, if you fight back, you will be hurt. So you allowed everything. Well, you need to mobilize the ego that will say, okay, this is danger. I need to remove myself from it. This is ego. That's not your highest soul speaking through you. This is ego saving your life in that moment. So knowing when to use it is the key here.
It's so amazing. Let's see, December of 2019, I had this dream that changed my life. And I don't remember dreams too often, and when I do, they're not that profound. This dream woke me up at 3:07 in the morning, and what happened was I was climbing up this mountain with people. It was daylight and it was dry out, so maybe it was like an Arizona mountain or something. It was definitely in dry weather climate. And the people that I was with, I didn't know too well, and they went left and I went right. And I looked to the right and there was this huge rock the size of a car in front of me. And I felt there was something behind that rock waiting for me. So I get down on the ground and out of nowhere I had a broomstick. So I had this stick and I banged the ground as hard as I can to provoke what was behind the rock to come out. So I smack it and it comes out, and this wolf, this giant wolf, comes right at me. I get chills right now because I viscerally can remember it. Climbs and jumps up on me and is biting my left arm, and I can see my flesh get torn open, but I'm not bleeding and I'm not hurting, but it's visceral. And my first thought is, am I supposed to kill this wolf? What am I supposed to do with it? And it's like all over the place. And I'm holding this thing, and I wake up in bed at 3:07 with my arms like this, holding this wolf, and I still feel it. So I get downstairs, and I don't wake my wife up. I go downstairs and I feel like I am still holding this wolf. And I wasn't sure what the lesson was until I started integrating this dream and I wrote it all down. And it was that it went back to that vision that I had of myself as a golden retriever laying down, and that I'm actually a wolf. And I forgot the true essence of myself. And when I integrated the wolf into me, everything changed. That was the last point. The wolf was me trying to wake me up to stop people pleasing. It's walk in sovereignty, speak your truth, live from the essence of your soul, and stop trying to control what others view of you. Just be. And when I realized that I am the wolf, everything changed. I had an incredible 2020 despite all the craziness of the world because of that dream. And like, I am the wolf. I have chills right now. We remember we had a call the next day. I had that dream. That's right.
Yes.
And you said, what do wolves do? They go into the darkness and they howl at the moon. And when a wolf howls, everyone awakens. You viscerally can feel that. And that dream, anyway, is bringing it back to soul and ego, was me coming back to say, I don't have to live in victim. Everything that I choose is of my own doing. And it becomes fun. I think when we get to this place, it's fun.
Yes, it is fun, because when you can allow the ego to be what it is, a tool here, you use it to be curious about this world. You use it to follow your dreams. You use it to follow your passions. You use it to follow your excitement, because that is where all of these things, they live in your ego. This is the way you should be using your ego, to feel the excitement of exploring new things in this reality, to feel the excitement of meeting new people, to see who they are, to explore who they are. It is when you start believing in the negative stuff about everything around you and believing in the limitations, not even being willing to explore beyond the limitations, that is when the ego drives you. So it becomes your home. This is where you are. This is your limitations. This is where you'll stay. You stagnate in ego. So this is why we are talking about ego today, because when you feel that you have stagnated, if there is only a negative narration going on in your head, if you feel that you're always defending yourself or always being attacked or seeing only the bad stuff in people, you need to focus in the now moment, breathe in, and allow the peace in every now moment to be a part of who you are. There is another thing. It's a question of what you believe about the reality. If you think that this reality is a malevolent place, then you will be very much in ego mode, and there will be a lot of suffering in that. If you think that it is a beneficial place, it is a kind place to be, you will be able to see beyond the limitations of fear and stuff. You will be able to use your curiosity because you trust. You can't use your curiosity unless you trust that it is okay out there. So it's a vital question to ask yourself, what do I believe? Do I think that we live in a kind universe, or an unkind universe, or a neutral universe? Because what you believe about this will shape your life.
Yes. There's some John Curtis. Hey, John, thanks for watching. He said, if I use the ego, doesn't that imply that two entities exist, the user and the ego? And then he said, may I say that you're talking about the ego as if it exists separately in one's head apart from the observer, which is good.
Yes, it is really good, because the observer is the observer. Everything else, the observer is the stillness using the body. The observer is the one thinking the thoughts. The observer is the one feeling the feelings, but it is not the feelings. It is not the body. It is not the thoughts. It is not the ego. The ego is a container of the desires. It's like having a toolbox. The observer is all that is. When people ask me, who are you? It's a really, really hard question to answer. But I say, I am all that is, exploring the desires, wants, and needs and fears of Gordana Biernat here. There is only one observer. The rest is tools that we are using here. That's how I see it. And I think that it can be tricky, because you will feel like there are two entities, but the stillness from within is the presence. Yes. And everything else is emotion, which we can choose to use in different ways. It's the same material shifting into different shapes, like ego or feelings, or because everything is energy anyway. It's just the frequency that differs it.
That's right.
And you're the stillness exploring that energy on the outside. So everything is, or outside, that's a quotation mark, because there is no outside. There's only this essence that is exploring and creating thing at the same time. We are creating and consuming our own reality at the same time.
Yes. There's a famous rabbi, I'm trying to remember. I mean, he lived hundreds of years ago. Maybe the 𝐆𝐵 said this. I don't recall who, but he never said, I am hungry. He never said, I am tired. He never said, I am anything, he would say, my body is hungry.
Yes.
My body is tired. He lived from the soul's perspective of the one who is
Yes.
here exploring this reality. And then he could say, my body needs rest. But it's never I am tired. And it's an incredibly powerful perspective.
Yes, it is. It is big for me. It has become a tool to use. I do not ask myself, how do I feel today? I ask myself, what is my state of consciousness? And then I have to answer, I'm in a state of whatever it is. If I feel that I am angry, for instance, I would say I'm in a state of anger, which means that I am in a state, something that is there, of anger. I can choose not to be in that state. But if I say I am angry, that means that I am that anger. How can I choose not to be something that I am?
Right. That's right.
So, and again, it's about externalizing and putting things where they're supposed to be. The I am within you is the stillness, exploring everything. All the emotions, all the thoughts, the body, everything that you see in this reality is experienced by the I am. That is the only thing that actually exists. Everything else is an illusion in quotation marks. It's not an illusion as we perceive illusions. It's about energy taking shapes and forms in this physical reality. So your I am and everything that follows that is an illusion that I am choosing to explore.
Yes, that's right. And you said last week, whatever follows I am follows you.
Follows you. Absolutely. So this is why I love what the monk did when he say my body is hungry. Yes, your body is hungry because you are exploring. You're in a state of hunger.
Yes, that's right. It's when we come back to this awareness, the concept of it's not even needing to be right. There's no right. Ego, when there's right, there's ego. But when there's soul and knowing, there's gratitude. And we all get to have these different perspectives and purviews of this reality. And when we share it with love and in love, how beautiful is it that we can learn again from one another, and the perspective that you've come from this into this earth plane to bring forth, and the perspective I've come into this earth plane to bring forth, and the perspective that every single human being on this planet comes. When we understand the truth of who we really are, why we're really here, to explore, to create, to commune together in beautiful humility and unity, it becomes fun. And I really believe where we're going into the new earth and the fifth dimension, leaving this polarity, duality, right and wrong, good and bad, ego, soul, light and dark, right and wrong, all these dualities that served us in that container of the third dimension. But when we're going into the fifth dimension and saying, wow, now that we have shed the ego because we don't need that container any longer like we had it, there is limitless possibilities of what we can create in this world together. It's going to be really beautiful.
Absolutely. I also feel like the dark part, or the minuses in this world, they're there for a reason. It's not about avoiding the darkness. It's not about avoiding all that is negative, because if there is no negativity, what is joy then?
Yeah, right.
This is a contrast, and we are here in this physical reality to explore the contrast between the two and to choose whatever it is we want to choose, consciously or unconsciously. That's also a key thing here. But to choose between the two, if there aren't two things to choose from, then there is no choice.
Yeah.
So honoring everything that is, staying in that calmness and choosing without judging what we do not choose is the path to walk. That is why I say, when I look at a person and I can see that they have activated their ego, if I start judging them, if I question their their being, I am lowering my frequency and I am no longer connected to my highest self. I am also ego. And then we co-create a reality which is a too low frequency.
Yeah.
So just knowing that, and that's in a split second, you can feel it and you can say, okay, I see the ego speaking there. It's okay. And when you do that, maybe that person feels that you're creating space for them to be who they are. They are not judged, and they might loosen things up a little bit for them. And it doesn't matter to you, actually. It doesn't matter. What matters is, what is your frequency? Are you awake to your soul? And do you know what you're choosing and why you're choosing it?
That's right. It's beautiful.
Yeah. Oh, it's time.
It's time. Here we are. Thank you thank you. I love these. I love you. This is so fun.
Yes.
These together. That's right.
Love to you too.
Yes. And everyone, thank you for watching. We're coming out with a course. We're working on a course to release, and it is going to be so profoundly liberating for people that take the course. And I'm excited to do that. And yeah, thank you. And we'll go live next Sunday again.
Next Sunday again, we'll go live again. So thank you everyone for being here this Sunday, and enjoy the rest of your day, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, we did it.
Yes, we did.